Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Khor. I'm the CEO and founder of People Coach, and our mission is to unlock people potential. And today we're going to talk about leading the new generation of leaders and building high performance for all. And when we talk about all, we talk about all individuals, we talk about teams, and then obviously organizations. So, and our purpose here is to unlock that potential for individuals and organisations through the democratisation of coaching. The people that created People Coaches, myself and James Chisholm, we've got very different backgrounds, but the things that we have and very different learnings. James, has worked around the world and led teams of up to 5,000. I, on the other hand, have been in my own businesses, running, starting businesses for the last and working with organisations for the last 25 years, but we're very single-minded about the importance of leadership in company performance. We're pretty proud of what we do, and here's lots of awards and data. I won't labour on that too much, but we're really proud of the achievements we've had over the last few years. Today, which is why you're here, not to hear about how awesome People Coach is, but actually to get some learnings, is we'll be discussing a few things. Who is a leader? Because there is some debate around at what time do I call myself a leader or not. The biggest mistakes that we see leaders making, what is changing in leadership and in organisations, and why is leadership seemingly harder now than it used to be? Developing a coaching culture and the GROW methodology, which is for us the basis of strong leadership, and then sharing some principles and practical tips regarding how to be a more impactful leader, and really taking away so that you guys can take away some simple things that you could do today. And I guess, every time you turn up to a masterclass, a seminar, a learning thing, you get all this information. We're of the progress principle. If you can take one thing away today that inspires you, that creates action, that's what we're looking for. So the first question is, who is a leader? And our belief is that leaders are not entitled. They're not just titled either. It's not when you have a person or direct reports reporting to you. It's not when you have the title manager or you get a company car or car space, if those things still exist. A leader is everybody that turns up. So whether you're a graduate or whether you're the CEO, people are looking at you. You are impacting everybody around you. So for those people that have or traditional leadership title or have people reporting in them, your leadership shadow, your impact on others is greater. But even if you don't have people reporting to you, your influence and impact on others is still there. And at a minimum, if you're not leading a team or organisation, we are all leading ourselves. How we turn up every day, how we manage our own workloads, how we manage our own moods, emotions, responses to things is really important. And I guess what I want to inspire in everybody is that, again, whether you have the title of a leader or whether you've got people reporting to you, you have a role as a leader to be the best that you can be and manage and be aware of the impact that you have on others. So the first question I actually want to ask you, if you could all get your phones out if possible and answer, is what are the biggest mistakes leaders make from your perspective? Right? So there's no right or wrong. It could be something that you've experienced today. It could be something you've never experienced in the past, or something that you observe. And I'm just curious to see what you guys think are the biggest mistakes that leaders are making today. Failure to connect, fantastic. Seagull management, yep. Don't make time, not being present, not listening, command and control, yep. Not listening is coming up again and again and again. Not asking for feedback, arrogance, no collaboration. Absolutely. Assuming the wrong intent, wonderful. So you can see there, like, for those that have participated. Thank you. For those that haven't, just start reading it, and they're all things I think we've all been the victim of and or perpetrated. And what's really important is being aware of it. There are sometimes times that you will need to micromanage just because of the situation. There's sometimes that you can't be present because there's an emergency or crisis going on somewhere else in the business and so forth. But it's about being aware of the impact that some of these behaviours have on your team and on outcomes. Thank you very much for that. So the 5 biggest mistakes that has been identified by research, and there's so much research on this, so I just picked the most common ones, and then I've added a few more that we see. One is lack of vision. So what the leaders lack is being able to talk to their teams or the organizations and giving people a North Star, so to speak. So why am I doing this thing? Why is this report so important? Why is this activity? Why is this strategy so important? Poor communication, which is unclear communication, insufficient information. I recently had a conversation with a managing director who said, but we've told them this. We sent them an email, and we also had a town hall. But the feedback that we were getting was that the team didn't know. So I think it's about being aware that we all learn in different ways and how we communicate, and also the frequency. There's research that shows that we now have less attention span than a goldfish. So goldfish is 8, humans are now 7.3 or something, and the younger you are, the less attention span you have. So the frequency, therefore, of how many times you have to say something, it has increased. And anybody that's got teenage children, you will know that you have to say at least 12 times before they actually unstack the dishwasher, right? So that same learning is coming into the workplace. Poor listening. So that is actually not listening, but that is also misinterpreted what is being said. So are you actually hearing the content, the intent, the subtext of what is being said, or are you just hearing the words if you're listening at all? Micromanaging, and the flip side of that is lack of delegation, right? So micromanaging, controlling, not allowing people to test and learn, that sort of thing, and also disempowering people. So again, anybody that knows that they do it, think about if it was done to you, or if it has been done to you, and then, let's think about what not to do. And then finally, lack of agility and flexibility. So, leaders that are very rigid, this is the plan, this is what we said we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, without any consideration of what's changing, are not great leaders, and they're actually not successful in business. If you think about how chaotic the world is, I mean, Trump came in, and I don't want to talk about politics, but and I'm not going to talk about if it's good or bad, but the changes that have been made on government policy and economic policy is impacting the rest of the world, right? So if anybody is sitting there, especially in a business that imports or exports, is saying, no, that we set this plan 3 years ago and this is the plan, then we've got a problem, right? Because that plan is no longer valid. What do we see, right? So we speak to we have thousands of coaching sessions. We've coached thousands of people over the last few years. And what we know is that one size does not fit all, right? So you as a leader, again, leader of self, leader of teams, that one way of behaving is not going to meet all the needs of your people around you. So the more agile, the more flexible, the more situational, us as leaders can be, and how we communicate and how we turn up, the more effective we're going to be. Understanding actually what your role is as a leader, and what we have found is, people especially who have gone into the first leadership role, so they were an individual contributor and then they move into their first leadership role, they see their job firstly as just doing more of what they did before, but actually when you change from being an individual contributor or a doer to a leader of people that do, fundamentally you change. And it's about understanding that and the impact that you have. The more senior you have, the greater your leadership shadow. And I'm going to give you an example. So I had another business, and it was like 25 people or something like that. And we would have birthday cakes on people's birthday. And one year, John, who was my business partner at the time and the director of the business, somebody forgot to give him a birthday cake, right? And so for the next week or so, he was making these really flippant comments like, oh, everybody gets a birthday cake here again, except for me. I'm the only one that pays for it, right? And oh, I'm the boss, but the boss gets nothing. And it was a joke, and he wasn't offended. But he kept going to the point where our receptionist came to me and cried and basically said, "Do you want me to resign? John's so upset with me." And if anybody else had made a joke about not getting a birthday cake because she genuinely made a mistake, she would have just said, "Oh, shut up, get your own cake," or something like that, something really flippant. But you can't say that to a leader. You can't say that to a manager sometimes, depending on the manager. And the impact of your words are much more significant. So even though you think, "Oh, it was only a joke, I didn't mean it, why are they taking it so seriously?" We need to be aware of, our position and the impact that they can have on other people. We also see that many leaders, and this is from feedback from our participants that have managers, say that they're not getting enough feedback, and my boss doesn't have tough conversations with either myself or our teammates or the organization or whoever it may be, right? So what they're alluding to is they're not seeing strong leadership or clear or transparent leadership where people are saying what needs to be said. People focusing on getting stuff done. We are all time poor. We all have a lack of resources. We all have, a to-do list that's ridiculous, but an over focus on getting stuff done, the quantity versus how we treat our people, and balancing that people versus task orientation is a big issue. One of the issues in business is that we tend to reward and recognize people that get a lot of stuff done, not the people that do it with great empathy or care or consideration of their people. So that's something that as leaders, again, we need to think about that balance, because if you get the right balance, you actually can have both, and you can be more profitable, more effective, and actually have more fun. And finally, fear. A lot of leaders don't know what they're supposed to do, especially if you think about being a first-time leader. You're not trained. We're not given any skills. So at some larger organizations, you might get on, a first-time manager's course, but that could be a week, or it could be 2 years after you actually take over, as a leader. So what do I do? I've never done it before. I haven't learned it. No one's taught me. The only way I see it is what my manager does. If you've got a good manager, you might learn, some great skills. If you've got a bad manager, who knows what you're learning? So that's what we see. And we see a lot of fear and anxiety when we speak to the people that we coach around, what do I do? How do I do this? I don't want to upset people. I don't want to be fired. I don't want to say the wrong thing. So it's a fear of how to lead. I was going to say, we're pretty interactive here. If you've got any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and Deeksha will yell them out to me, and I'm happy to answer them. So look, there's a lot of leadership models, and if you start Googling or chat GPTing it, or whatever takes your fancy, you're going to see all of these, right? It's been since the day dot. So there's empathetic leadership, followership, situation, autocratic, servant, transactional, democratic. Curious is one that I've just coined, because I that's the way I think about leadership. There is no, we like to say there's no right or wrong. There's just different impact and consequences. But actually every one of them is relevant at some time, right? So if there's a fire and we need to get out of a building, autocratic leadership is the one. Let's not debate. Let's not brainstorm. Let's not get consensus, or should we go left or right? Somebody just take control and do it, right? And everyone just shut up and follow. But in other situations, when you've got a big problem that's never been solved before, you probably want a different type of leadership, right? And then each individual that you work with would require a different type of leadership. What is curious leadership, or how I define it, is a leader who is genuinely interested and curious about finding better solutions and understanding the people that they're working with. Because when you're curious, you will find out more and you'll get to better outcomes. That also then, within that, you can be empathetic. So being curious about finding out and empathizing with where people are. You can create followership. You can be a better situational leader because you understand the environment, you understand the motivators, you understand what's going on. You can also be autocratic because, if you're curious about what's going on and you see actually it's a fire, and at this point it's not about that, it's about just getting everybody out safe, you can act in a different way. So I guess at one of our core values at People Coach is curiosity, and any leader who's effective has a healthy sense of wanting to learn, being curious about what's different, and trying things new. So, and I found that being curious can get you out of many tricky conversations or situations through conversation. I'm going to give you examples moving forward. So for those people who, particularly newer leaders, but actually for all leaders, because again, what we are hearing across the board, and we're hearing it from executive, like when we speak to HR directors and even CEOs, as well as when we talk to, leaders, micromanagement or lack of delegation or, executive leaders or senior leaders still being in the weeds is something that's coming up a lot, right? And so thinking about what is your role as a leader, and then what is your role as an employee or individual contributor, right? So if you don't have a team reporting into your role, and you're an individual contributor, your role is to achieve through doing yourself, right? It's the effort that I exert is the outcome that I get, and I do that in line with what my manager asked me to do. My role is to learn. My role is to listen to learn. My role is to fail to learn, right? So, and I mean fail, not fail to learn, but fail, learn from that, learn from it, right? To be responsible for what for what I've said I'm going to do, to make yourself indispensable. So what we want to do as an individual contributor is do your job so well that it actually, to the point of, again, redundancy, you can move up to the next level if you choose, or move on to a next opportunity, to ask a lot of questions and be curious to learn, but also accept and ask for feedback. So anybody that has not got, well, everybody should be doing this anyway, the last one, but especially if you're you're not in the next role that you want to be in, is ask for feedback. Don't just sit back and say they'll tell me if something's working well or wrong, and I think being curious around what you can do better, it's sometimes a really hard thing to do, asking for feedback. It's also hard giving feedback is what we're hearing. We use a simple model, start, stop, continue. And it would be as easy as, and Sevda, I'm just saying, because I can see your name there, it would be, Sevda, if you thought, if you could give me some recommendations on how I could have this presentation more effective for you, what would you suggest I start, stop, and continue? Right? And then it's a really simple, non-emotional, non-confrontational way to ask for feedback, and also a simple way for people to give feedback. Sorry, I saw a question pop up there. I think it was, what if they don't like what you hear? What was that? Hold on, let me just see. Pop it up. It said, what if they don't really give feedback if you ask? You can only ask, and that's why that model of start, stop, continue but if there was one thing that you think I could start, stop, continue, what could it be? Surely there's one thing. And at minimum, they might say, Steph might have gone, I'll start on time. I don't think you should have started at 12:01, start at 12, right? It can be as innocuous at that, but you want to create the culture where people are much more comfortable in giving and receiving feedback. Now, as a leader, this is really hard sometimes, is to delegate and stand back. So your role actually is not to achieve by doing, it's by achieving by letting others do. And this is often hard, especially for first-time leaders or actually lots of leaders. But when you can do it quicker, better, faster, and the way you'd like it, right? But that is not sustainable, because the reason why you've been promoted into the next role is because you are already great at that. Your role is to empower and educate those people that report to you to be as effective as you. You're not going to get them to be more effective and enabled if you keep on doing it for them. Again, I use parenting, right? So if they don't stack the dishwasher properly and you continue doing it, you're going to be doing it until they're 25 years old and leave home, right? And whereas if you let the mistakes happen and you're happy with not all the dishes being washed properly the first time, but you show them and then you show them, eventually they'll stack the dishwasher properly, right? So it does take time, it does take commitment, but it's an important thing. Our role is to teach, empower, and enable, to be quiet, to allow space. Allowing space for a leader is one of the hardest things to do. It's very hard for me. So when you ask a question, when you are asking for feedback, not always, as a leader, sometimes we already have the answers. So we just ask the question, and if somebody doesn't reply in 3 seconds, we give the answer. It's really important to allow space, make it a little bit uncomfortable so that uncomfortable so that someone else answers, or comfortable enough that they've had the time to think through what they would like to say. A little tip on that is I always have something to write on. I will just start writing in my journal, or count. Like I'll literally start writing something. I'll write my answer. I'll write 1, 2, 3. I'll do something to occupy myself to fill the time. But allowing your team members to think and reply to you is a key thing, attribute of a great leader. Our role is to encourage, to be accountable, and ultimately make yourself redundant. Right? Because leaders, if you can make yourself redundant, it means that you've empowered your team and educated so that they can move into your role, but also it means you're ready for the next role. Again, I don't believe that progression is always up. It could be around, it could be any sort of thing, but it means that you're ready for your next challenge. We ask questions to create awareness and teach. Right? So it shouldn't be questions to catch people out. It should be questions to inspire insight. And finally, as a leader, our role must be to give constructive feedback so that they can learn. It's to recognize what people are doing right and then help them understand what they can do differently to get a better outcome. Rather, I don't want to say wrong, right? And also to celebrate. What we are seeing, and I'll show you some data in a minute, is that reward and recognition is becoming higher and higher on the needs for this next generation of leader. And you can understand that because, Gen Zs and Alphas, which are the next one, which is really, really quite scary, they're brought up on instant gamification, right? And instant, satisfaction. So they do something and they get bills and they get tickets and they get all sorts of, things on their games that they play. So for leaders moving forward, our ability to recognize, reward, celebrate, and give feedback is much higher. And what we're going to see is how Gen Xers, who are a lot of the sort of middle managers at the moment, are dealing with Zs and Alphas. It's a really interesting time, which I'm going to take you through in a minute. So what is expected as a leader? So what is expected of us as leaders is changing dramatically. So there's a first thing, that we are growing as a nation, and what we aspire to is different. So I had this situation where I was speaking, and I'm going to put it in generational terms, a Gen X manager, and she said, I had this, one of my team who's in Gen Z say to me, I just want to be respected. I want people to care about me. I want to do good work, and want to be recognised for the work I do. And I said, right. And I said, what context is this in? She said, well, this team member said, why should I work here? And this Gen X leader said, well, because you got a job and I'm paying you. Versus what she actually wanted was, recognition, reward, challenge, opportunity, empathy, inspiring leadership. And what I said to the Gen X leader is, we all want that. Like, why is it wrong for any leader to want to be challenged and rewarded and recognized? We all want that. But for some of us that are a little bit older, that have been brought up in a different environment, we accept not being having empathetic letters or not being recognized or not being rewarded. We're used to working hard and putting in extra hours and doing stuff. That's just the way we're brought up. And so we find it difficult to think about these younger generations going, you know what, you're not paying me to work till 8 o'clock at night every night. I don't want to do it. And we don't understand it. But then don't we all want that? Don't we all want to spend time with our family and do other things? Or like I started to learn to knit last night because I'm trying to put into practice, what I tell people to do, which is have balance. I didn't do a very good job. There was lots of holes in it already, but at least I'm trying. The second thing is the generational dynamics, which I'm going to take you through much more detail because that's really interesting. The third thing is Australia will be, depending on which government get in, potentially positive net migration, right? We actually need it for the country to grow because like a lot of countries, our birth rate's dropping. But, to do that, if you think about the different cultures, and we're already a very multicultural country, how do we relate to all the different cultures overlapped with all the different generations? And then what does that mean for leaders? So this is a really interesting slide that I saw sort of last year. In 1996, based on the census, right, when we asked what's the cultural background, of every Australian or every person living in Australia, the majority was English, then New Zealand, then Italy, then Vietnam, and then Scotland. So very European and Anglo-European, right, except for Vietnam, and that was from the Vietnam War. In 2021, it's England still, but then India, China, New Zealand, and the Philippines. Now, let's think about the value set, the cultural implications, and then think about the number of, how an immigrant, a first-time immigrant, or even for me, I'm a second-generation immigrant. So my parents immigrated first, and then I was born here. How we think, what's important to us versus, my children who are now third generation, how they think and what they feel. So again, not all Gen Zs are the same. Not all women are the same. Not all 50-year-olds are the same because we've got, and then we've got all our personal circumstances within that. So I think as a leader, it is very complex because you have to be aware of all these cultural differences as well as motivational differences. For example, a first-generation immigrant, who's just starting here, an overseas student that's now living here, they would have very different views on security, structure, hierarchy, respect versus, Australian kid that's been here for centuries, who's gone to a local school that's got a really strong network, right? So just thinking about how those two individuals who could both be the same age with the same qualification, going to the same uni, how they approach things could be very, very different. And we need to be aware of that. And that's where curiosity comes into it. The other slide, when you think about the intersection, is the leadership styles of us as leaders, but also what they expect. So this is the first time that potentially we could have nearly all 6 generations in the workforce. We've still got some builders on boards, right? We've got baby boomers in senior roles or exec teams or boards. We've got Gen Xers, who are a lot of the exec teams and middle managers. We've then got millennials or Gen Ys. We've got Gen Zs that are coming in, and then we've got alphas, right? So alphas are, coming into the workforce pretty much now, right? They're born in 2010. They're 15 years old. They're getting their first job. Now, the style of how they want to be led, but also how they lead is like builders of control. I tell you what to do. You're lucky to get a job. Be quiet. I don't want to hear. I'm the boss. You're not. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. Baby boomers, a little bit less controlling, but very still directing. Don't argue with me. I have the title. I know. I've earned my spot here. I've been in this company for 20 years. I've got 20 years experience or 50 years experience or whatever. Gen Xers were more coordinating. We get in, we do stuff, we're juggling, we had to do a lot of stuff our own. We're the forgotten generation, latchkey kid, walked home on our own, made our own sandwiches, all that, rode on the bikes till 6 o'clock at night, all that stuff. So we just get stuff done. We work it out with our friends. Off we go. Gen Y, more guiding, right? A bit more supportive. Gen Z, empowering. They expect to be educated. They expect to be taught. They expect to be given opportunities. And Gen Alpha, so this is the hard one. They expect to be inspired. That's hard, right? Because what is inspiration? What does inspiration mean to one person versus another person is different. And then also to be inspiring all the time, that's also going to be hard. So there's a lot of pressure now on leaders moving forward. The other part of this that's really interesting is what's important to them as a leader. So as I said, the first baby boomers, Gen X and Gen Y, pretty much what they expected from their leaders was clear communication, integrity, and be approachable. They swapped around with which order, but basically they're the three things that they wanted, right? Gen Z. Now, Gen Z will be over 35% by 2030, will be Gen Z employees, right? They want approachable, they want clear communication, and they want empathy. So this is the first time ever since this research has been done that they've identified that empathy has become a key issue. Now, what is empathy? Empathy is I understand, I acknowledge what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what's going on for you. Now, X's sometimes and boomers will go, oh my God, that should stay at home. Your personal problems are not my problems. You stay at home, fix it when you're at work, be professional. When you're not at work, that's your. And whilst there's a line where you can't, work is work and we need to be professional, so you can't bring everything and work. Your manager is not your counselor, shouldn't be fixing all your problems. At the same time, understanding and empathizing and helping to find solutions is really important. And that empathetic leader will ultimately build stronger teams. It does take more effort. It takes more emotional effort, and it takes more quantitative effort, time. It takes more skills, and those skills at a base is about being curious. So, Katrina, I can see your name there. Katrina, I can see that you've been quiet today. What's going on for you? How can I help you? This slide is McCrindle. So I've seen. So if you go to look up McCrindle research, they have an amazing data and information on all the generations. So it is a time where suspending belief is an important thing, and I think I saw that in one of those things. Don't make assumptions. Gen Z specifically, I won't go through all of this slide, but I think what the interesting thing is there is that there was this research study that was pretty old school, as you can imagine. It was 20s or 30s or something, and it said you always hire someone with a mortgage because then they can't resign because then they've got financial responsibilities, right? And this generation, one of the biggest fears is they'll actually never own a home. Now, if you put that really simply, I'm just going to do a really simple correlation, which may or may not be correct, right? But if people don't feel stuck that they have to stay in a job because they've got this huge mortgage or blah, 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 if they can go, well, I'll just rent a smaller house, or I'll move in back to my parents, or I'll move in with a friend, or I'll do something, or I'll go and travel and live in Bali and work remotely or whatever. It means that people aren't going to stay with our organisations just for money. And put on that all the other things that this new generation is demanding or requiring, it puts a lot more pressure on organisations and individual leaders to be more attractive, more inspiring, to be more challenging, to offer more opportunities. That doesn't mean soft. That doesn't mean giving in. That means setting, some structure, some guidelines, and so forth. So, I mean, I could talk to anyone just about Gen Z and how to manage that, right? Let alone trying to fit it all in here. It's so hard. I won't go through that, but I think, all the things that I've just said, it's hard. It's complicated. You don't want to offend anybody. I've not been trained is a lot that we hear. This need to get tasks done, and so forth. Like, it's really an interesting thing. I've just had a question pop up with the work from home issues and how recruiters are using it as a benefit. Absolutely. I think all of us, and I'm going to be really honest, I can't believe that I went in 5 days a week from 8 o'clock to 7 o'clock for the majority of my career to date. I don't actually not know how I did it. And I love the fact that we're remote, and I love that opportunity for our team, but I can also see what we're losing. And for those people that are fighting, anyone here that's fighting against going into the office 2 or 3 days a week, it's like fighting eating well and going to the gym. Like, you might not like it, but the benefits for you are astronomical. The incidental learning that you're missing out, the opportunity to connect with human beings, the sense of belonging and culture, the opportunity to have reward and recognition and celebration, to learn new things. If you push yourself too hard to only be by yourself, it's not a healthy thing in the long run. It might feel good now, but it's not good in the long run. A personal rant on that one. Okay, so as a leader, we play many different roles. We play the manager, so expert, I'm directing, I'm telling you what needs to be done, I'm setting the framework, I'm telling you all my learnings, I'm potentially micromanaging you, I'm the traffic controller, I'm clearing the blockages if things are going wrong, and I'm helping you get stuff done. Another role that a leader plays is a mentor, where I've had experience, I'm going to share that experience with you. You might or might not be wedded to the outcome, but you're sort of saying, this is how I did it last time, this is a way we could do it next time. With a coach, so if you take a coaching approach to leadership, the assumption is that the individual knows the answer, and our role as a coach is to help them find that solution. When people find their own solutions, they're more wedded and more committed to that solution, and they're also more accountable to complete the task. So the more senior you become in leadership, the more your role is about coaching and less about managing or even mentoring, right? Because even as a mentor, what you did 5 or 10 years ago is probably totally irrelevant or somewhat irrelevant to what's happening today, right? So sometimes it can be useful, sometimes not. And finally, friend, and this is where first-time leaders, but to be honest, many leaders get stuck in, but I don't want to be mean. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to be called up by HR by saying the wrong thing. Where we're a friend. We give unconditional support. We give empathy. We listen. We help fix their problems. If you're the leader that's going, Jane's too busy, I know she's got a lot on her, I'll do that thing for her and I'll just fix it. You're not helping her in the long run, right? Because if she can't learn what needs to be done, what the mistakes are, if she can't manage her time, it's not going to be great for future promotions, and you're taking away the opportunity for someone to learn. So why is all this leadership stuff important? First thing is bottom line profit, right? More effective individuals, more effective teams lead to more effective performance and outcomes, and ultimately bottom line. If you're a better leader, your people will stay with you longer. Now, there is another research study that says that there's a 20% differential. So if an employee or a team member is inspired by you and loves their manager and they get offered another job, they will stay with you up to 20% difference in salary. After that, they're like, oh, that's so much money, I'm going to go, right? But before that, there's a bit of, I'd rather stay with the person and the organisation that I'm with because I know them, I trust them, they've got my back, I'm learning, and I'll make that money up later. So retention, and that drops straight to the bottom line. Discretionary effort. So you think about a leader that you were inspired by, that you trusted, that you knew wanted the best for you, you would do that extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes, extra report. You would do that extra thing for them but you're not going to do it for the person that you feel cheated by or doesn't have your back or a leader that you don't respect. Innovation. The more you respect your leader, the more you trust your leader, the more likely you are to say things that are a bit off the wall. Like, I know this could be stupid, but what do you think about this? Right? Which could be the next big bang idea. If somebody doesn't respect you, is frightened about you, thinks that you're going to, cut them down, they're not even going to say anything. So they're not going to give you the new ideas. They're not going to release that discretionary offer for you. Engagement, of course, competitive advantage. The best reverse mentoring I've actually seen is senior people, so older Gen Xers, maybe like me, and youngers who are doing reverse mentoring on social media and communications and just, how that's all working. Better leaders actually create a more enjoyable workforce and work environment. And actually, as we start to delegate more as leaders, empower more, train more, and see the outcomes of that, we enjoy it more because we're not in the weeds all the time. I mean, anybody that's feeling that they're in the weeds as a manager at the moment, let's have a chat around how to get yourself out of the weeds, because it can be absolutely inspiring, not just for you, but your whole team, and it gets you to where you need to be. And finally, the outcome of all of this is personal, professional, and business impact. And so we always start with the individual first, because you've got to lead yourself, then you've got to lead others, and then you've got to lead the business, right? So it's about creating the fundamentals of how to do those things. Okay, so the principles, and I sort of think it's the principles of impactful leadership and leaders, but it's also the principles for me of life, right? So life can be hard, like leadership can be hard, but it can also be a lot easier with some simple things. And one is be curious. Just ask questions, Katrina, why are you feeling like that? How can I help you with that? And even if we don't understand things around, gender diversity or neurodiversity, and we're scared about asking because we don't want to be offensive. Like, I think if you do it with the right intention of, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I don't have any neurodiversity. Can you help me understand what it's like to have ADHD, or what it's like to have a child with autism, so I can help you so I can understand better and not make a mistake later, right? So just being really honest. If I don't have it, it's like, James Chisholm, he's a 6 foot white male, right? He has no idea what it's like to be a 5 foot nothing Asian woman in the Australian workplace. He has no idea. And it's not offensive for him to say, but what have you gone through? Like, I could be offended and say, are you ridiculous? Blah, blah, blah. Or I could go, okay, you want to learn? I'm going to tell you. And the same way, I haven't been a 6 foot, white male. There's things that he also sees that I don't see. So what can I be curious about to learn? Assume positive intent. I saw that in somebody else in the slides in the beginning. Let's just assume that most people turn up to work or in life to do the right thing, right? So peers, managers, team members, whatever. No one's turning up going, who can I really annoy and what can I get wrong today to see how angry I can make people, right? Let's assume no one's doing that. So when someone does say or do something that offends you, upsets you, annoys you, frustrates you, assuming positive intent and then being curious around it, right? So, hey, Dave, when you said that thing, I know it wasn't your intention, but I want to give you some feedback that it actually made me feel uncomfortable. I'm just curious around what were you trying to let me know, right? And that creates communication, it creates awareness, hopefully it creates change, and it can really dampen a bad situation quite quickly. Dialogue, not monologue. I've been doing a lot of a monologue, but leadership is about a dialogue, talking to people and allowing other people to be heard. It's about being present. Now, open questions, and I'm going to go through that in a moment. Just quickly, an open question is a question that cannot be answered by yes, no. Don't assume. So don't assume you know the answer. Don't assume that you know what this person's going through. Don't assume you know exactly what they mean. If you need any clarity, always ask clarifying questions. Empathizing is really important of their fears and motivations, allowing silence, which I've talked about, and investing in yourself and your team as a leader. So, or anybody that's here is already investing in themselves, right? Because you're trying to learn about what's going on in leadership, in people. So you're doing that. But this is a constant thing. And spending an hour or so a week is a really good thing, whether it's reading, whatever. And then finally, just understanding that no matter who you are, you're not right 100% of the time. Nobody is. So it's okay to say, oh, whether you're a leader or not, oh, I'm wrong. I didn't understand that. I didn't think about it like that. I don't see it like that. I didn't see it like that. Or I didn't learn that. So being really open and vulnerable with what you don't know is fine, because you are not right all the time. It's just not possible. Oops, wrong slide. Okay. So the GROW methodology, I'm going to go really quickly, is a really simple coaching methodology that has been around for ages, and it's simply goals, reality, options, and way forward. So when there's a conversation to be had, when there's a problem to be solved, where there's a decision to be made, it's simple as, what is the goal? So what do we actually want to achieve out of this conversation, out of this decision, out of this, project? What's the current situation that we're facing? So what are all the things that we need to consider? We've got budget issues, time issues, we don't have the right people in place, whatever. What are our options? So what can we do? 1, 2, 3. And then when we've decided that, what are we going to do? Exactly what are we going to do and when we're going to do it? For me, all of them are important, but you can have a lot of people spend time clarifying the goals, working out what's wrong and not, working out all the options, and then they don't go and do it. And if you don't do it, it's just a piece of paper or something on your computer that doesn't actually achieve any outcome. So closed questions. So this is the part where I say, if you don't take anything else out, just learning closed questions and open questions and when to use them, that would be a key thing. A closed question can be answered with yes or no. It can be a can, will, do, should, is. And it doesn't create opportunity for discussion or openness. So, well, can you complete this report by Tuesday? Or will you repeat this report by Tuesday? Do you agree with this recommendation? Right. So if you're a leader and you're asking your team, who's going to say, no, I don't agree? Like, it's very confrontational. Can you complete this report by Tuesday? No, I can't. Why not? Right? So it can become very confrontational and hard to create feedback. However, if you ask it in a who, what, why, when way, when do you think you can complete that report? Now, let's say let's say you need it by Tuesday and they say Friday, right? Then the comment is, okay, that makes sense. I can see that you've got a lot of work. What do we need to change, or what do we need to take away from you so that you can get it done by Tuesday? Because ideally that's when I would like it done. And what you do is you're creating commitment. You're creating empowerment, because the person then says, well, actually, if I change this to next Thursday and I can actually do that by Tuesday. Then they're all of a sudden committed, versus the other way where you've said, do it by Tuesday. And they're like, you don't care what I do. I'm really busy. I'm not sitting around, not having anything to do, just to do your report by Tuesday, right? So instead of creating commitment, you create resentment. A simple way to ask the same question, you get a much different result. So some of the questions, the simple thing is who, how, what, right, rather than is. But goal clarification questions could be, how far away from you are you from this ideal goal situation, and what are the specific results you're looking to achieve? Reality questions are, what evidence do you have that this is the case? So sometimes when you're coaching, especially a team member who might say, I don't have any information, or nobody's listening to me, or no one's respecting me, or I'm not recognized, whatever it may be, it would be, what's the evidence that you've had that this is the case, right? Because I think sometimes we can dramatize things. What information are you missing to make a better decision? So again, if you're coaching a team member who's like, I don't know what to do with this situation, or they're coming up with a solution that is not quite right, rather than just going, just do this, I know, I'll tell you, actually ask them, what else can they do to find the information they need to make a different decision? Options. I get this a lot when we're coaching people, where people say, I'll say, what do you think you could do? Or what do you think's stopping you? Or, what information are you missing? And they might go, I don't know. I don't know. So a really simple question is, but if you did know, what could the answer be? And we all have a thought, but when we say, I don't know, it usually means I sort of have an idea, but I'm a bit embarrassed and I'm not sure it's the perfect right idea, so I'm not going to say anything. Whereas if you go, but if you did, just imagine you did, what could it be? And then things start popping out, right? And again, this gives the space for, your team members to actually share some ideas that could be really perfect, but they're just too scared to share. And finally, and what else is the other one that I like? So give me one solution. Okay, and what else? And what else? Rather than they give you a solution, you go, yeah, that's not the one I was looking for. Actually, what I think we should do is blah. Like, give them a few chances, because like the whole point that you're the leader and your team is reporting to you means that they don't know as much as you. That's the whole point of it, right? So give them a chance to find their feet to share with you. And finally, holding people to account. When are you going to do that? Right? And then what's going to stop you from doing that? And then what are you going to put in place to mitigate that risk? So holding them accountable. So as a leader, what can you do today? You can listen. You can try, you can test, you can learn. So a couple of those things. If you're not good at asking open-ended questions, do that. If you're not present, do that. If you're not curious, do that. And invest in yourself and your leadership. As I said, the people sitting here, you're already doing that. As an individual, I'm gonna say you are leading self, but you also have a role to communicate back to your leaders around what's working and what's not working for you. Complaining about your leader not being great and then not saying anything or not asking questions is not really fair, because they might not know that their intention is probably to do the right thing by you, and you're not giving them an opportunity to do better by you if you're not sharing. So speak up and talk to your manager. Find mentors, find coaches, find allies and sponsors. So find people that ask for their help. And finally, be accountable for your own career and performance. Employers have a role, like it makes sense for them to inspire you and want to keep you and train you and develop you, because that's good to stay in organizations. It's not an organization's role to find you the perfect job that you will love every day, right? That's your role. Like, you need to look after we all have to look after ourselves and our own happiness, and actually taking account of what we're doing, what we're learning, what mistakes we've made is really important to moving forward. So, any questions? Nope. If anybody's got any questions moving forward, you can always email us out. We're very, very happy to answer. But what I would like you to all think about, and we've got a few minutes now, and if people want to, yes, we can share the slides, Kat. We'll also be sharing the video with you all after this thing. So what I want you to all think about is, what is one inspiring leadership skill you would like to develop? Who displays this skill that you work with? See, it might be somebody in the media, probably not, but it could be, or around you. And then, when will you try this? So if everybody could just take 2 minutes now to think about that. I'm starting to see them coming through. This is great. Being more curious. Great. So as we finish up and you're, finalising, we just letting you know, we believe in everything that we're talking about regarding education empowerment, and we support, our charity of choice is the Hunger Project. whose mission is to end world hunger through the education empowerment of women. And to date, we have invested over, I think, $150,000, and we commit to a minimum of $35,000 a year. So anybody that works with us is contributing to supporting all people, but particularly women and young girls in some of the world's poorest countries. We love feedback. There's a QR code. If you can, give us some feedback or just email us. Constantly learning organisations. So any start, stop and continues, anybody that's, doesn't like giving feedback, that's all we're going to ask for, a start, stop and continue, or what we could do differently. So please feel free to give us any feedback, and please follow us on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for everybody that's talking about being more curious. It is my favourite word. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you. See you.